One of the things that Terry Cohen, going back to the Minnesota Iceman, he had a big problem was getting any of his professors or associates who were scientifically trained to seriously come and take a look at what he was looking at. You know, he's been very adamant that what he saw under the ice was a real creature, and that it was, you know, there was evidence of plant vegetation in the teeth. There was like lice sheddings on embedded in the hair, little details like that. And he even said like the ice was very clear, very thin at that point when he got to see it. That you know, someone with a scientific eye would have been able to say, you know, yeah, this is real. And of course, you know, when Sanderson and Webelmans got to see it, they were convinced that it was a real creature. Now, you know, the thing is though, we need, you know, what Terry Cohen was saying was that he couldn't get a single person to come and take him seriously until Sanderson showed up, and it was very frustrating for him. And this was back in the 60s. I can imagine today it's probably even more so, or if not just as bad, getting real scientists to pay attention to this subject, because it's like, you know, I guess professional suicide for them. That's what they think. You know, like, I mean, if they're gonna, you know, put their reputation on the line to investigate something that is considered by mainstream scientists to be on the fringe, then it's not worth them trying to look into.
It costs you your career,
right,
basically.
It costs you your career, and that's not real science. That's not science at all, and that's the part that pisses me off. You know, it's like, I mean, I'm really mad about it that there's still this attitude today that you know, certain subjects are not worthy of being studied, like scientifically studied, gotten, you know, and announced that, like, yes, there is something to this. There are a few things that we can, you know, prove to ourselves, because, you know, I want to find an alien. What am I going to do? Go out and look in the sky with binoculars? I could be there forever. You know, it's like a needle in a haystack, literally, in the middle of the universe. But and, you know, same thing with like Bigfoot or Loch Ness Monster. Who's going to find these unless you're actually going out there and spending 6 months or something out in the woods? You know, one of the things I've always said is, I see these guys on these shows and stuff go out there with like all their camera equipment, and there's like, you know, 20 of them plus the crew, and they're all making all sorts of noise and calls and yells. And if you're a Bigfoot and you're pretty smart, you will avoid these guys. Like, I mean, you'd be 20 miles away by the time they come, you know where you were the last 5 minutes. So the only way I always thought was that anyone's going to actually find one of these creatures is to go out there and live like them. Is to go out there, live, seriously, get some food or learn some survival skills, and go out into the deepest heart of the woods where no other man is going to be, and just live and watch and listen. And if they're out there, that's how they're going to be found. You know, and it's probably a good idea to leave your cameras, leave your guns at home, and just go out there and live as a Bigfoot or as a Sasquatch, because I think they're smart. I think they're smarter than us when it comes to being in the wilderness. You know, there's a lot of theories about you know, what they are, and you know, like some, you know, like in our museum we have the Gigantopithecus model, but I don't think they're a Gigantopithecus. If it's a Gigantopithecus, there's, you know, it's an ape. This thing is more like us in its intelligence. It's got to be pretty damn smart to be able to evade humans. Now, this is, of course, all hypothetical, if they're real, if they are out there. One thing I do find very hard to believe is, if they're not real, why would so many people claim to have sightings when they're going to obviously face ridicule? Why are they finding so many footprints, the actual, you know, cast that are being made, several of them with dermal ridges, which would be, I think, very difficult, if not impossible, to fake. But there was one thing I realized, let me see if there is something to this. And this is one of the other kind of turning points in my life that made me realize there is something to this, to these mysteries, to this worthy of investigating. And I figured if there's any one thing I can pursue that might be provable, it was this whole thing with ESP and psychic ability. And so I was like, okay, is this a bunch of baloney? Is this real? Are these people who claim they're psychics, are they real? Or is it just a bunch of baloney? Like, James Randi and everyone says. And so, but I was like, you know what? That's something I can test. I can. There are books out there that say, teach yourself how to become psychic. Use your ESP or whatever. And so I started investigating it on my own. I started researching this and like really taking it seriously. Well, within 3 months after doing these exercises that were in these books that I was reading, I was able to, and you're gonna laugh, but I was able to become psychic. ESP basically is your instinct. And if that's something that, as human beings, I think we've kind of gotten away from our instincts and gone more towards our intellect. It's a very difficult thing for us to do, is to completely rid our mind of all thoughts. I mean, think about it. How many times have you just like sat still without the voice going off in your head? Like, how many times do you just sit there? Try it one time. Try just sitting still and not hearing your voice talking to yourself in your head. You might be able to do it for 5 to 10 seconds, and all of a sudden that voice comes back, or you'll listen to a song or something come in your head. Well, you have to get to the point where nothing is in your head and just let things come to you, and that's how the ESP works. That told me that, okay, there is something. I proved to myself, at least, there is something to this, and that means that maybe there's something to all these other things too. And when I realized, like, well, wait a second, all psychic ability is your intuition. And animals are very tuned in to their intuition. Why wouldn't a creature that lives in the middle of the woods have enhanced psychic abilities?
There you go.
Why wouldn't they? I mean, why wouldn't their intuition be 100 times greater than us as humans?
It would have to be, right?
It would have to. When I used to kind of laugh at these people that were like, Bigfoot or psychic and stuff, it makes complete sense that they are. That's exactly how they've probably evaded us, if they're real. The point is, even the most, what may seem like the most outlandish stories everything needs to be taken seriously. Like, I mean, we really need to look into the concept that Bigfoot are psychic. And I know a lot of people are going to think that's ridiculous. But to me, like I said, everything's on the table. I don't take anything off the table until it's, been 100% disproven or proven, but unless you can't, how do you disprove something? How do you disprove, we've proved there are no Bigfoot out there. It's like,
that's a good point. That's a good point.
You can't. You can't disprove Bigfoot as well as, you can prove them if we ever find one or get it, But you can't disprove them.
Right.
That's the thing. And, you can never disprove any of these things.